Today, we continue into the crucial topic of restoring a disrupted gut microbiome. Our gut health plays a vital role in our overall well-being, so it is essential to understand how to restore balance when things go awry. Join us as Dr. Song shares her invaluable insights and strategies for a healthy gut. In our toxin taming segment, we'll be exploring the reasons behind avoiding benzoyl peroxide, a common ingredient found in many personal care products. Plus, we're debunking a medical myth surrounding Semaglutide or Ozempic. Don't miss this enlightening episode packed with information that will benefit your health journey.
The Discovery Doc Podcast, where your journey to empowered, non-toxic living begins. Join me, Dr. Cece, a doctor of nursing practice, self-proclaimed toxin tamer, and mama of four, alongside
me, Anna Kate, your medical mystery overachiever. Together, we'll uncover the latest in functional medicine, debunk health myths, tame toxins, and provide practical tips for thriving in a modern world.
Get ready to take control of your health with expert insights, raw stories, and actionable wellness strategies designed to help you and your family lead vibrant, toxin-free lives.
Let's discover together. Welcome to the Discovery Doc Podcast. This week, we continue our conversation with Dr. Elisa Song. Elisa.
Yep, you messed that one up.
Sorry, Dr. Elisa Song.
She messed it up. We were waiting for her to fumble her words,
Well,
guys.
you got it the right first couple times. Awesome.
Okay.
I know.
All right, we're going to do that again.
Okay, go for it. So we just have, are you okay on timing? We have two more little short sections.
Yep.
Okay, wonderful.
Welcome to the Discovery Doc Podcast. This week, we continue our conversation with Dr. Elisa Song. What you don't know about antibiotics could slow recovery after use.
Yes. So discoverers, be sure to listen back on our previous week's episodes with Dr. Song. There's so much knowledge and just empowering just information in those episodes that I would love for you to go back and listen if you've missed it. If not, let's continue our discussion. And we are going to talk about all things antibiotics. We started on episode 1 or the first week of the episodes with her, but we are going to dive a little bit deeper into that now. So Dr. Song, what should every parent and practitioner know? I'm going to open the floor and just let you go.
Well, antibiotics are such an important topic of discussion, especially for children. And frankly, for all of us. We know, and for me as a conventional pediatrician, I've seen the life-saving benefits of antibiotics, but we're also at the time where we have to recognize from a functional medicine standpoint the unintended and adverse consequences of antibiotic use, both inappropriate and appropriate antibiotic use. Because as we've mentioned in previous episodes, antibiotics are amazing at killing bugs, bacteria in particular, right? But we have our entire ecosystem of microbes in our gut microbiome. Guess what? We have microbiomes on our skin, on our breast milk glands, on our eyeballs, right? Our brains. I mean, we're discovering we have these different ecosystems, microbial ecosystems in and on us. And they are there to provide benefit for us. Now, when we take an antibiotic, presumably it's for a pathogenic, bad bacteria. Let's say maybe you have strep pneumo, a pneumonia, right? And you need the antibiotics. Well, antibiotics don't just target the bad bacteria. They can, kill all the good bacteria along with the bad bacteria. And unfortunately, some antibiotics have even been found to preserve the bad bacteria at the expense of the good bacteria, which is one of the reasons why we see C. diff, Clostridia difficile infections, right? And C. diff is becoming an increasing problem. And so when we're killing off all the beneficial flora, if we don't understand how to really help the microbiome recover, that's when we can see some of the unintended short-term or long-term consequences that it can include problems with immune system functioning, allergic responses, autoimmunity, or brain problems, neurodevelopmental and neuropsychiatric concerns. And so we want to make sure that when we're using antibiotics, we understand these adverse effects and we know how to mop up some of the damage and recover and restore your microbiome. And then we also have to back up and take a public health perspective too, and recognize that antibiotics, one of the most important public health discoveries of the 20th century, may no longer serve us in the way that we want them to. We're at the point now where by 2050, which is just around the corner, many experts, including the World Health Organization, are concerned that antibiotic resistance is going to become a leading cause of death worldwide. This is because antibiotics are way overused and inappropriately used, right?
Yes.
And so a simple skin infection, a simple ear infection could become something where we have no antibiotics to treat. And that is not where we want to head back in time to a place, right? And when we look at children in particular, so for me as a pediatrician, of course, I'm really wanting to understand the implications for kids. Well, in some studies, up to 70% of antibiotics written for kids were inappropriately prescribed.
They're viral.
Yeah, 70%, because the vast majority of infections kids get are viral, where antibiotics aren't going to do a thing except kill off the beneficial bugs, right? Or maybe in some cases, an antibiotic that was way too broad, stronger than needed to be, was used. So we have to take all of this and really, be good stewards. We have to practice good antibiotic stewardship for ourselves and our kids, and also for public health reasons. And it goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that a lot of that starts in the primary care realm, because we do have to preserve the antibiotic use for more emergent acute situations. They can absolutely be life-saving. Yeah. And when they are implemented in a life-saving situation, that's really not what's causing the abundant resistance that's occurring. It is the more overprescribing in a primary care setting. So it really starts there. And the pushback I get a lot from other practitioners is, well, the patients push for it, the parents push for it, they just want to do something now, or like you mentioned on previous episodes, that there's just not time to really do anything else but write a quick script. And I have a hard time. One, I could never rationalize if a parent is pushing. If I don't believe that a prescription should be given, you're not going to force me to do that. That is my license on the piece of paper. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I will give you other alternatives. So that part I don't really understand with other practitioners, but I do think that it is a huge hole that needs to be just retaught, starting at the fundamentals with school. What else can we give the parent? What else, if they're wanting just comfort measures, what else is available that is evidence-based to help comfort the kid? You mentioned garlic mullein oil, or garlic oil in general for the ears. That's wonderful. And then you have parameters, in terms of when we see peds in our office, we have parameters. If they're, if it's red and bulging, but it's not pussy, then I'm going with a garlic mullein oil for the next 48 hours. You're going to come back for me to recheck that ear. Yeah. And we're going to keep kind of a close watch, but there's no reason to jump right to the antibiotic, like you said, 70% of the time. Yeah. So it really starts with practitioners having the proper training to understand, okay, what else can be done? I understand that the parents are wanting some feedback or some form of, something that can be done then. So what else can I offer in this moment besides just pushing the antibiotic?
Well, and a couple of things. So it's a really important point that you made, that a lot of practitioners say, well, but the parents want it. Right. Now, here's the thing, because I have a whole chapter on what every parent and practitioner needs to understand about antibiotics. And there's a list of 6 questions there to ask your doctor before you start antibiotics. Now, the first question is the most important, and it's a really simple question. That first question is, hey, doc, is this antibiotic really necessary? Now, sounds like a simple question. Why would the doctor be prescribing it if it's not necessary? However, one study found that practitioners were twice as likely to prescribe an antibiotic, even if they thought it wasn't necessary, if they thought the patients wanted it. So simply by asking that question, you're not saying, I don't want any antibiotics. You're saying, I want to use them if they're necessary, but I want to know, is this necessary? So you're opening the door for that practitioner to know, oh, okay, this is not one of those parents who's come in with the sole purpose of walking out with a prescription in hand, right? Because there are parents like that, but parents listening to this podcast are not like that, right? So listen, so ask the question. The second point of, what are the alternatives? Because as a parent, sure, you don't want to use unnecessary antibiotics, but your kid's still in pain. And also, by the way, too, we know ibuprofen, unfortunately, can also cause microbiome disruption almost as much as antibiotics. So what do we do, right? And that's where the doc or the practitioner in front of you, they may not know, right? And hopefully they'll learn more tools. But that's where, finding other practitioners in your community that you can collaborate with, right? As long as you know, okay, these antibiotics weren't necessary, but let's wait and see. I don't want them to become necessary in a few days. What else can we do? It might be finding a naturopathic doctor or an integrative pediatrician or practitioner. And that's where, for me, it was really important for me to, my book actually could have been 2 separate books. I mean, part 4 is literally like the top 25 top acute conditions or conditions that kids face. And all the tools that I use, from homeopathy to herbs to supplements to, diet and lifestyle, everything that if you're a patient and you page me at 2 a.m, my kid's throwing up or my kid has a fever, or they have an earache, which of course it always happens in the middle of the night, right? What I would tell you to do, right? What I would recommend, and also when those medications might be needed, when you should really think about calling your doctor or even going to the emergency room. Because as a parent, you don't want to be left thinking, okay, I'm doing all these quote natural things, but okay, then what? Like, how do I know for sure? Right. You just want to make sure that you're doing the best for parents, but there's so many things we can do. I mean, you mentioned the garlic healing, but there's so many things that we can do, whether it's a sore throat or flu or eczema or sleep problems.
Yes, absolutely. I don't want you to give away all your questions because I want our listeners to go get your book.
I'm gonna win this book. Y'all just don't play, because I'm gonna enter. I want this signed copy on my shelf. I only have books on my shelf that are signed by the author. I have so many books. So Mark's like, you need to cut it out. And I said, if I get the author to sign it, can I put it on my shelf?
I love that. Oh my gosh, I love that.
That is so funny.
So I want a signed copy of your book.
So, okay.
For sure.
And I don't want you said there's 6 questions. Again, I don't want you to give them all away. But you said the first one is this antibiotic truly needed? Can you give our listeners 2 more?
All right. So, I mean, that's one, right? The second one, you can ask, hey, are you prescribing this because it's really, it's bacterial, or is it kind of just in case, right? And then if it is bacterial, like, how do you know? And that's where requesting a throat swab, right? If it's strep, there's no way, 0 way that any clinician can look at your throat, no matter how red or pussy or inflamed the tonsils are, and say that's bacterial, strep, or it's viral. Some of the worst sore throats I've seen were viral, right? And so can you confirm, right? If your kiddo is having some discomfort, and while they're peeing, can we do a culture first, right? And so how can we confirm? I think confirming is also, from a public health standpoint, really important, so that, again, we're not inappropriately using these medications, right? And the third one you already alluded to, well, what are some alternatives? Do you have any alternatives that I can use? I mean, that is really important because, again, we don't want to feel like we're left high and dry with, okay, we're going to wait on the antibiotics, but here you go. Because, that also, most of our tools in conventional pediatrics when kids are sick is, quote, supportive care. What does supportive care really mean? It means, all right, keep them hydrated, not with the Gatorade, please, right? But keep them hydrated, right? If they have a fever, give them Tylenol or Motrin around the clock, or, if they are, not, if they are, well, so that's the main thing. Give them Tylenol or Motrin. If they're stuffy nose, give them the Benadryl or the Sudafed, which, by the way, hasn't been shown to work, right? I mean, that's supportive care, right? And, if they're not better, right? If they're not better in 2 to 3 days, or they still have a stuffy nose in 7 to 10 days, come back, because then maybe it's bacterial and we'll give you the antibiotics then, right? So those things, I mean, the measures I've mentioned, they're all kind of suppressing the symptoms, not helping your child heal. And that's where, if we learn how to use homeopathy or herbs or supplements, they can help your kids, their immune systems, do what they're trying to do a little more effectively without suppressing the symptoms.
Yes, I don't know what episode we're on. In one of our episodes this month, we actually talk about suppressing fever, especially in children. And I think it's not common knowledge that the fever is there to do its job, to help our blood cells, just our innate immune system go attack that pathogen. So it's actually been proven in literature that suppressing the fever causes prolonged symptoms. And so even parents understanding, I think a lot of parents think that when they're suppressing that fever and that, that number is going down, that they're helping their child get over the illness faster, where they think they're actually doing something about the illness itself. And so even just the basic understanding of, no, you might be comforting your child by decreasing the temperature, but in terms of the infection, it is not doing anything to eradicate the infection. You mentioned urine, and I think just a quick point about this is even there with antibiotic overuse, common practice is, okay, let's say we go to urgent care, we think that there might be a UTI, we give the patient a prescription for an antibiotic, we send it for a culture comes back 3 days later, patient's been on the antibiotic 3 days, oh, it's actually negative, so stop that antibiotic. Are there other tools that can be utilized in that moment to help the patient with that discomfort? In my practice, we would use either something like D-mannose or Buco by Marco Pharma. There's awesome herbal extracts there. Even more spore-based probiotics, depending on what's going on, either orally or vaginally, depending on the woman's circumstance. But there are definitely other modalities that can be utilized in the meantime while you are getting that information back from the culture and then making the decision if an antibiotic is warranted or not. But let's say, for more deep dive question here, there are absolutely times that antibiotics are needed and justified and utilized appropriately. What are your top tips in that moment for helping to prevent that antibiotic from disrupting the gut microbiome, or afterwards to protect their GI tract once the antibiotic is finished?
Yeah. So this is, there are going to be times where antibiotics are necessary. And I said in a previous episode, I mean, both my babies had antibiotics when they were under 5 weeks of age. And they've had antibiotics for, rarely. I think, my son had a strep infection later on in life. And so, I gave him antibiotics for that. But we have to understand how to recover the microbiome. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting. If you did nothing after a round of antibiotics, your microbiome would eventually start to recover. However, it wants to recover to the state that it was in before you took antibiotics. So the key, ideally, would be to create that foundation of microbiome resilience even before your kiddo ever needs antibiotics. That's the key, right? Because if you have the microbiome resilience, if you're doing the 5 things for microbiome magic and you're nourishing your microbiome and you're living and eating in a way that supports a healthy microbiome, yeah, that's resilience, right? Your microbiome will take that hit for sure after the antibiotic, and then it wants to bounce back. Now, what if maybe your child's microbiome wasn't at the healthiest state, right? You can still recover your child's microbiome, but it goes beyond just taking probiotics. A lot of people think, well, I'm just going to throw in, 100 trillion colonies in there and blast the microbiome with the good stuff. Well, that doesn't necessarily work either. So here's the thing, I call it the gut reset program. And I have, some keys. This is what I would do with you in my practice, whether it's after a recent or past round of antibiotics, because sometimes you're thinking back now like, oh, my kiddo had antibiotics when they were 3 and now they're dealing with some immune stuff. There's probably some disruption there. Or if they're, maybe, had a recent round of antibiotics for, I don't know, let's say a bronchitis. So the gut reset, the RE in the reset, is returning to the 5 things for microbiome magic. Now we have to go back to that. The key really, is if we are throwing in all those trillions of colonies of probiotics, well, if you don't have an ecosystem where those probiotics want to actually call their home, they're not going to stick around. They're just going to come right out in the poop, right? So we have to think about your child's gut microbiome and your gut microbiome as an ecosystem. And we want a friendly ecosystem, a friendly neighborhood that whenever the good guys are going through, it calls to them and says, hey, move on in. I want you to stay here. Make this your home. And just by doing that, getting in some good bugs in there, those good bugs also then call in their friendly neighbors to say, hey, let's create a good environment for our home, right? So that's why we need that. We've got to have that diet and lifestyle piece that we're working on. Now, then we're giving, a lot of antibiotics can trigger leaky gut. So the set, S, is a seal and heal the leaky gut. E is eliminate gut dysbiosis. Possibly there's gut dysbiosis. And the T is transforming the gut microbiome. Now, the seal and heal the leaky gut, a lot of people are familiar with the 5 R's, but that's really, where we're giving the nutrients to protect your leaky gut. And those most important nutrients are going to be zinc, glutamine, your omega-3s, drink your bone broth, get in your zinc that way, get in the healing glutamine that way, and, take some fish oil. The transforming the microbiome, that's probably the most important piece. And we've spoken about the vagus nerve before, right? But when we want to really have this restoration take hold, we need to then engage our vagus nerve to really kind of hammer in that healthy ecosystem that then sticks around. So, I mean, there's a whole timeline with this, but again, if you are during this time, you are going to be taking probiotics, right? Now, there are probiotic strains that have been shown to help the microbiome recover after antibiotics. Those are the strains that I want in there, right? Like Saccharomyces boulardii can be helpful. Lactobacillus rhamnosus GG can be helpful. There's a Lactobacillus acidophilus NCFM. I mean, there's a few strains that are in there that you can find in some multi-strain probiotic supplements, right? Yeah. So choosing those, getting in extra prebiotics. I mean, you're going to get the fiber and the phytonutrients in from your diet, hopefully. Fermented foods have been found to recover microbiome diversity and function even better than fiber. So get in your kimchi and your sauerkraut, but you may need to take an extra prebiotic supplement. Now, how long do I do this for after an acute round of antibiotics? Probably a couple of months, 1 to 2 months, right? Maybe 3 months, right? Now, if there's a chronic condition going on and you're doing this gut reset for your child's eczema, it may be a longer journey, right? And that's where you can start with that. But then ideally I would incorporate some testing, like some microbiome testing, maybe a nutrient deficiencies testing to optimize all of the other healing that needs to take place.
Yeah, absolutely. A good way to think about it is, and how I explain it to my patients, because I think a lot of people don't fully understand even what a microbiome is or the different components of it. We tend to just think, okay, an antibiotic comes in and it gets rid of all the all the good bacteria. But there are things that are non-pathogenic, but are opportunistic that do belong in our microbiome, whether it's in our gut, on our skin, in our mouth, wherever it is, that are opportunistic bacteria or opportunistic little parasites or fungal species that belong there. But what I say is they're like the weeds of our GI tract. And then we have the flowers of our GI tract, and it's like this beautiful garden. And when we take an antibiotic, yes, it can cut down the flowers and kind of shrink the flowers. But not only that, it can allow the weeds to overgrow. And that's where we get the increased risk of autoimmunity or the increased risk of dysbiosis. And so understanding kind of the concept of, okay, that antibiotic can come in just like so many other things can and disrupt our microbiome. It means it kind of can push down the good and take the bad guys and allow them to overgrow. And something that I see, especially with my little eczema kiddos, is Candida, of course, is coming in. That's why I like more spore-based probiotics, like Saccharomyces boulardii as well, alongside antibiotic use, because it does also help kind of that Candida overgrowth and helping those bad guys, those opportunistic organisms, stay at bay as well.
Yeah. It's a comprehensive approach. And again, it's got to be, we can, again, throw in the probiotics in there, but like you said, I mean, it's a whole garden, right? Our microbiome is not just the microorganisms in it. That technically are our microbiota, right? Those are the actual organisms. The microbiome is the whole ecosystem that is comprised of your microbiota and all the genes that they bring with them and the little environment that they've created for themselves. So it's a whole ecosystem. It's just like, I mean, I tell kids it's, if they're thinking about, Jack's Magic Beanstalks, it's not like Jack's Magic Beans. You can't just throw, beans, probiotics in there and expect things to grow. Just like, for people who grow gardens in their yard and grow a tomato plant, you can't just throw seeds on the ground without the proper water and the sunlight and the nutrients in the soil and expect that you're going to have beautiful, juicy, red, tomatoes growing.
Yes, absolutely. Well, discoverers, stay tuned. We have one more episode with Dr. Song where we're going to dive into just this holiday season and how we can be proactive with helping the kiddos stay sick around somewhat of the chaos of the holidays.
Stay healthy, you mean?
Yes.
Not think it. You did.
We're in the eyes.
We're going to clear it all up in the next episode.
Yeah,
So
clearly. Yeah, you have to know, listen.
Yeah. So also make sure that you are following us on Instagram at the Discovery Doc for a special opportunity to win Dr. Song's book. If I don't win it first, you're competing against me. And also, if you would like an additional entry into that contest, make sure that you are on my insider list so I can send you a special invitation for an extra entry. And do you have a wellness dilemma for the Discovery Doc, our guest to solve? Share your query on our podcast page at thediscoverydoc.com. We're continuing our exploration of the toxin tamer toxin benzoyl peroxide. Benzoyl peroxide.
Yes. She almost forgot it, guys.
Examining why it's crucial to be aware of toxins and their impact on our health and well-being. All right. So it's benzoyl peroxide itself is technically safe until it's stored incorrectly and benzene becomes the culprit and the big toxin. So again, I'm going to say this, I say it all the time. If you're using it and it's properly stored, kind of finish what you have and then make the switch, because we don't want to waste anything, because that's not great either. But if this is a big trigger for you, ditch it and switch it.
Yes. So yeah, the issue is that, like, before it gets to you, the amount of places it has to be,
you never know.
You never know. So the issue again is what AQ is saying is that, yes, benzoyl peroxide, when it can turn into something called benzene when it's not stored at proper temperatures, particularly when it's exposed to high temperatures. So when you talk about storage and transportation or even high body temperature, so if we have a fever and we are applying our acne cream, literally that can alter and shift the product and just whatever the chemicals that are happening and the interactions that are happening within the product to then create benzene. So that's a huge issue, is you can't control that product getting to you. You can control it when you have it, right? Yeah. And storing it at proper temperatures, but you don't know where it goes or where it's been stored before it gets to you.
If you feel defeated in all of the products that you have and you worry about them, join our support community, because we have a total support system.
To not go down rabbit holes, lose your mind. Yes, absolutely. So it's very concerning. This is actually really, really concerning, because since the 1980s, benzene has been known to cause cancer. What is that? Someone do math. 44 years? 44 years?
Yeah.
And so, and I mean cancers that are various leukemias, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, aplastic anemia, blood disorders and diseases, hematological cancers, lung diseases, Hodgkin's disease. Like, these are very serious illnesses and diseases.
I like saying that word.
Which one?
Interstitial.
You do?
Yeah. Interstitial.
How often are you saying this?
I'm not, but it's just one of those fun words that gets stuck in your head and you just say it all the time. I don't know why. It's just, I like words. I can't never say them, but I like them.
They sound good in my head, but when I try to speak them, they don't come out right.
No. So, okay. So here's the thing is, I'm going to say this, broken record. I'm going to say it all the time for the rest of eternity, because this is just where we are. If we know that it is a carcinogen or does damage or does 1, 2, 3, why are we exposed to it?
Yeah. This, I mean, it's an age-old question, because to the governing bodies that make these rules, the rules are set as if you're only exposed to this product or this thing one time. So it's like, in this one serving size, what is the allotted amount that we can have in there that's not, quote unquote, harmful to the person? That is the thought process, which is ridiculous, because all of this has been proven to bioaccumulate. So if you're using an acne cream daily, sometimes twice a day, now it's about that bioaccumulation and those toxins building up in the body, not just the one-off. And that is not taken into consideration anywhere. And even, like AK said, even though it's a known carcinogen, it's even allowed in our drinking water and in gasoline. And they just require special labeling above 5%, or if it contains 5% or more of benzene, it just requires a label. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be in there at all.
Right.
At all.
It doesn't improve performance or efficacy.
Why is it there? Why is it there? So the kind of more sciencey behind it is that what happens is when we are exposed to benzene, and it does accumulate again on a cream daily that your skin is absorbing and gets into the bloodstream, it can decrease your white blood cells. It can cause and lead to anemia. It can cause damage to our DNA. That is where the trail then goes to linking it to cancer. It can also be harmful towards the bone marrow and increased chance of infection. So, yeah, it's a problem, girlfriend. It's a problem.
I'm just going to cry right now. Just cry. Because this is one of 750,000.
Yeah, that shouldn't even be, like, the frustrating part about it is it should just not be. Like, some of these things are naturally occurring, right? And we can't get rid of those, but they do not need to be then synthetically processed and put in our personal care products. For what? To make a cheaper product? To make it last longer on the shelf? I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
But we're going to give you cancer in the meantime.
Yeah, they're after the bottom line. And if they keep you sick, then they have something else to treat. So it's win-win for the nutritional companies and food and the drug. So the FDA is one entity. They are not separate, and they should be. And I'm hoping that here in 2025, they become separate and good things happen there. But they are intertwined and they're in bed together and they're never going to break up.
Yeah. So when one profits, the other does.
Right.
Is her point.
Yeah.
I think.
That's my point. So they're mutually incentivized to help each other. So if we keep people sick, then we can also charge them to be sick because wellness doesn't make money.
No. And it's, if you look in we are super digressing right now, but if we look at the history of major illnesses, there are just people that profit from that illness coming about. And so they create a problem.
2020.
Yeah. We didn't say that.
Excuse me.
They create the problem and then they sell the solution. So a huge one for me, and a great example is obesity. You know, America has stripped away people's natural abilities to connect to whole nutrient dense foods and sold us on this convenience, highly processed, ultra refined seed oils, sugars, all these things, even in our baby formulas, that from the get-go, we are predisposed to I would say more at risk, I should say, for becoming obese. Well, now here comes along something like Ozempic, and we're going to profit off of you being obese because then all of the comorbidities that come along with it. But then we're also going to profit off of the drug to help make you thin again.
Yep.
Like that. What?
So keep listening because we're going to talk about that next.
Yeah. Ozempic. We will absolutely talk about that.
Actually, in this episode right after this.
Oh.
So if they keep listening,
keep listening
2
then.
seconds.
Apparently, I don't know what we're talking about when.
We'll get there. So, all right, stay inspired and informed. Subscribe to our mailing list at thediscoverydoc.com for exclusive access to Dr. Cece's top picks and swaps this season. In this installment of Medical Myth Busting, prepare to have your beliefs challenged and your knowledge expanded as we expose the reality behind those persistent health myths. All right, this is a big one. We promised you in the last segment, our last Toxin Tamer segment, that we would be talking about this thing. Now,
dun dun dun.
Ozempic, we don't know what it will do to you.
Okay, so that's a huge issue, is the fact that we can sing that song.
I know.
Okay.
And it's been around forever. I mean, since 2017.
Okay. It is so sad that we can sing that song. I saw this thing the other day, no, a long time ago, I'm not going to say the other day, that was like kids now know more brands by their logo than they can name plants and trees and flowers and things.
Fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables, yes.
Yeah.
Like that is so sad, but that is point A of a million points with this Ozempic. So our myth is Ozempic is a miracle drug, period. Okay. No, it's not. I'm just going to say that. But this is a huge can of worms. Ozempic, the GLP-1 category of drugs is newer, but has been around. What I don't love is I don't trust, frankly, is the marketing behind it and the funding behind it.
Yep.
So we mentioned earlier, I'm sorry, I don't know what segment it was. Maybe AK can tell us. But a lot of times our country likes to create a problem and then sell a solution. And that's how our medical system is so stinking profitable. That to me is a big problem. So if we create this huge issue of Americans who are overweight, but hey, let me come and sell you this quote unquote miracle cure drug that will help you lose the weight. Now who's benefiting from that? The pharmaceutical companies. And they put it on TV and on commercials as this happy-go-lucky, amazing, this woman who is smiling and frolicking in the fields and having the time of her life. And now
Everybody's so happy.
Everyone's so happy, socializing, that you're so distracted by the tune, and it's all marketing. It's all marketing. Like, you know what they're doing by creating something catchy and appealing to you, that your eyes aren't going to all of the potential side effects or adverse reactions to it. And it also is so inappropriate to me that the United States is one of the only few countries, I think, what was it, Canada and New Zealand are the other two, that can market drugs directly to the consumer.
So if we took that $212 trillion that they use on advertising and put it into
health and
wellness and creating platforms or creating funding for natural, what is it called? It's called where the foundations are the focus, and doctors are given the incentive to push the foundations over a drug, and that's not what's happening. So
you could totally change, with that amount of money, you could totally change this country to be based on true health, to have good food in our school system, to have good, chemicals out of our foods, processed foods out, where it's not like it's become this thing where fast food is cheaper than, some broccoli at the store, but promoting local farmers, getting it directly from the source, that is way cheaper than the processed stuff or, fast food restaurants.
Let's fund farmers and give coupons on fruits, vegetables, lean meats, proteins, anything that comes from the animal or comes from the ground. That would be an incredible game changer.
Yeah.
You can change that in your own life.
You can. So that's huge. I don't trust the marketing behind it. I think they are trying to sell you a product. And that is exactly what they're doing. They're selling you this amazing cure that will help you lose weight, which how many millions of Americans are overweight, and who is funding the research behind the effectiveness of this product, the pharmaceutical companies, and who is profiting from this product, the pharmaceutical companies. So I don't like that. Now, if it doesn't matter what I like and don't like, that's emotion. It's about fact here. So let's get into some of the facts. The injection mechanism is patented, but not the drug itself. So, was this yours?
Yeah.
You want to talk about this?
No, well, no one ever tells us this.
Yeah.
So we're all about peptides have been around for forever.
Peptides are either small or large chain amino acids, for the record.
So Ozempic has put it into this syringe. We talked about dosing last month. The dose is far too high, which creates all the side effects, and we'll get into that in a little bit too. But the peptide itself is not patented. They may have a formulation of things, but their patent comes to the injectable device.
She's trying to say is Semaglutide.
Yes.
We need to use that word.
Yes. Okay. Semaglutide.
So Semaglutide is what she's saying is not patented. And so the drug company took that peptide, incorporated it into their own injection mechanism, into their own drug. That AK is going to tell us how much it costs to make and how much they charge for.
$5.
$5.
So this is from in Canada, in Europe, that it costs $5 to make. And then they send everything over here and charge Americans $1,800 and up.
Wild. Absolutely wild. So I think there's so many aspects here of what you need to be aware of. And this is where, again, I'm going to remove all emotion and we're just going to look at the facts. The facts are that we need to know what is in it. Has anybody that's on Ozempic actually looked at the manufactured ingredients? That would be step one. Yes, there is semaglutide. Some semaglutide is that peptide that AK is talking about that they're using within this drug. But there's also disodium phosphate dihydrate. There's propylene glycol, asterisks on that guy, phenol, and then water for injection. Propylene glycol is a synthetic liquid that's used in chemicals, foods, pharmaceutical industries as an antifreeze. So it basically helps that injection maintain its liquid form when it enters the body. However, heavy use of the injectable medications with propylene glycol have shown in studies to lead to high doses of it in the body, i.e., that propylene glycol is not metabolized by the body and it's synthetically building up and bioaccumulating with that injection that you're taking every single week.
Mm-hmm.
Each 1 milliliter of Ozempic contains 14 milligrams.
That's ridiculous.
Of propylene glycol. Propylene glycol itself has been linked to cardiotoxicity, so toxic for our cardiovascular system and our heart, renal dysfunction, so our kidneys, liver dysfunction, respiratory issues, and central nervous system disorders. So this is massive because it might not be, when people say the side effects of Ozempic, you have to understand where that's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
It might not actually be from the GLP-1 receptor agonist or from that semaglutide. It might be what it is mixed with that you're injecting into the body. So that also then leads me to being aware of those long-term side effects. These are all conversations you should have with your doctor before making the decision if this is the right thing for you or not. The huge, huge, huge flag here is that the FDA has a warning for thyroid tumors and cancer.
It's on the box.
It's on the box. But there is no set rule for how long you can be on Ozempic. Okay, let me back up. The FDA knows that Ozempic can cause thyroid cancer, but they set no regulations on how long a patient can be on it. So your doctor could prescribe it for you, you lose weight, awesome, and they keep it on, you keep it on board for 5 years because it's helping you, maybe you haven't changed any sort of other lifestyle factors and it's helping you maintain the weight loss, knowingly that it causes thyroid cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So because of this massive boom of Ozempic occurring in the past couple of years, I have no doubt if we fast forward 5-10 years from now, we already are the country with the largest population of thyroid disorders because of all of the chemicals that we're exposed to. But there's going to be a large uptick of thyroid cancers because of this. So what is the trade-off here? You losing weight or possibly being at a much higher risk for thyroid cancer?
So here's the other thing too, is that any peptide in excess causes issues. So insulin is a peptide.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are trying to maintain your insulin, so you're type 2 diabetic or you're insulin sensitive, like too little or too much can cause lots of issues. So it's not necessarily the peptide itself. Again, it's all the other things.
Yeah.
And then another thing that I just learned is the association of the American Pediatric Association or whatever.
Yeah.
They are recommending
that
obese children at the age of 12 be put on Ozempic for life.
For life.
Instead of moving, eating better, eating whole foods, getting sleep, getting in sunlight, and we'll talk about the foundations in a second, but if that is not front and center, none of these peptides help. None of them.
Yeah.
They have their place, but if we're not addressing, again, the root cause, then this Band-Aid causes more issues than it solves.
And a 12-year-old being put on it for life. One, it just gives us a crutch. That's not a solution. It just gives us a crutch of saying, oh, we have this drug that will hopefully help us lose weight. But again, here's a dose of a side dose of thyroid cancer with it, or pancreatitis. It impacts your pancreas. Pancreatic cancer. Do you know how intense pancreatic cancer is?
I don't want I don't want anything in my pancreas. I know what's supposed to be there.
Kidney and gallbladder disease, intestinal obstruction. So this is a big one too, because in terms of short term, what I have seen is absolutely GI health declining. So intestinal obstruction, it means that it can decrease our motility within the GI tract, which then will increase our risk for colon cancer. This is a huge problem because, again, even in short term, a lot of patients that choose to go on it, I have some who have chosen to go on it, they suffer from more acid reflux, from constipation, from more bloating, from just stomach aches and cramping, because it is obstructing the bowel's ability to move appropriately and properly. And if we go to kind of the basic fundamentals of our bowel movements, our poop is meant to move through that tube at a specific rate.
Mm-hmm.
It deposits good bacteria along the way as it's sliding out. And if it gets stuck for too long, then it can also overgrow bad bacteria in that location instead of, moving along properly. If it goes too fast, then we run the risk of no good bacteria being deposited at all. And so with something like Ozempic, it's known to cause more constipation, to decrease that motility, which also increases that risk of colon cancer. So for short-term use, yes. Is it effective for weight loss? For most patients that I have who've chosen to go on it, yes. There are some who don't see a darn thing.
Yeah.
Not a thing.
It can be a kickstart, but it is not an all-in solution if those foundations aren't in place.
Exactly.
You cannot eat crap and still want this to work. It doesn't work that way. You have to radically change your lifestyle, your nutritional lifestyle, your physical lifestyle, for this to be an added value benefit in the short term.
Yes, in the short term. And those are the patients who also rebound. If nothing has changed in terms of lifestyle, then sure, they could lose 20, 30 pounds on it in a couple months, and then they get off and they have changed nothing in terms of lifestyle, and now they've gained the weight back, and so they get back on it. Again, it's not a solution to me. It can be kind of a little kickstart and a little kick in the booty, as I like to say, for very short term, as just a buffer as you are making those changes. I will not allow my patients to be on it more than 3 months.
Yeah,
I won't. And it's important to know that I do not prescribe Ozempic. I will actually use just the semaglutide peptide itself, because then I can control the dosage easier. I can control the frequency. I can control if we're compounding it, other kind of just other things that we add in. If I need other complexes in there, other amino acids in there, I can control that. So it's much more unique to the patient versus a one-size-fits-all Ozempic. The semaglutide peptide still contains the active ingredient, which is glucagon, like peptide 1 or that GLP-1 receptor agonist, but allows us, again, to tailor it more specifically to the patient's need. When I do use it short term, I have lots of rules.
Yes.
One is that I'm not prescribing it if you are not dedicated to changing lifestyle. And we have a health coach in office that if my patient needs help doing that, then I pull her in, and there's weekly meetings, accountability for just diet, exercise, movement, whatever it might be. Number 2 is because of the massive risks that are associated with long-term use, right? So I'm comfortable with the 3-month because literature shows us that long-term use, that's where we get those side effects or possible increased risk of cancers from. But while you're on it short-term, protecting the GI tract and the thyroid is of utmost just importance. I always keep my patients on good acids, so like betaine, HCl, butyrate, pancreatic enzymes, kind of a combo supplement of that, immunoglobulins, as well as kind of rotating daily probiotics. If, depending on the patient's history, if they already trend a little bit more constipated, now I'll get more glutamate or aloe or something in there that helps to keep things moving and grooving. And then diet choices are massive. I will stop. I will yank it from a patient if they tell me, hey, yeah, it's because it suppresses your appetite. It will not make you hungry. And if you are, you know, just taking a spoonful of mac and cheese once a day, I'm not here for that. But if we are actively making informed decisions to, even if you're not hungry, to just have a high fat, high good fat, high protein, high fiber, couple bites of something.
Yeah.
Cool. Because now we're protecting you.
Yep.
Versus the other side of it. The liver also, NAC, milk thistle, glutathione, any of those, just kind of rotating through to keep things flushing and keep things moving for that short term.
And that leads us into the foundations that if you are not, if you want to lose weight, so Ozempic is a blood sugar drug, right? That's what it's like for type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
Like that is what it is marketed as. And then there's just the side effect of the semaglutide and the GLP-1. So she's gone into all of that. But if the foundation is that you want to lose weight, you have to have these things in place. One, it's prioritizing protein. This is my nutrition coaching, personal training coming out. Prioritize protein. Every single meal have protein and a healthy fat. And then you can have the carbs if you want to. But if you're full on proteins and fat, you'll eat less carbs. And then hydration. Make sure that you're drinking a ton of water, especially if you're on this type of supplement as well to help you in your path. If you're not getting in the hydration, that stops everything up and no bueno.
Yeah.
Sleep, managing your stress, making sure that you have a great sleep routine, making sure that when you get up, you get your eyeballs on the sun. So even if it's outside and cloudy, just getting nothing between your eyeballs and the sun and just helping with that vitamin D and all of those things. So and also number 5 is strength training and movement. If you are not doing these things as just the way of life, this drug will not help you. It will cause more issues than it causes benefits, right? So try those 5 things, those 5 foundations first. Give yourself 6 months. And then if you need a little kick, great.
Yeah.
Talk to your practitioner, start low,
Yeah.
and go from there.
Yes. And that's a good 2 kind of points in there also is I tell my patients this. I am always going to support you with whatever you want to do in safe parameters. So I especially will honor women. There are some women that come to me that are chronically ill, that their weight is just bothering them. It doesn't make them feel good. They slip down into a deeper depression, and we cannot heal even if we have a patient, let's say, who has 25 different infections going on. All of those impact, how we feel, but your mindset and how you feel about yourself physically. If we start to feel better physically, then our mindset changes, our energy starts to shift. And so I'm very, very mindful, especially with my chronically ill patients or my women, that if they are at a point when they come to me and they just do not feel good about themselves, then that is a priority to me. And so that is where I say, okay, hey, we have options. We can start with different kind of amino acid injections that are not drugs, that have things like acetyl-L-carnitine in them, B complexes that are really good fat liquidizers. If you're active, this is an awesome choice. If you're not very active, then ineffective, to be honest. And then we can go to other peptides. Again, for active patients, there are good peptides that can help convert fat into lean muscle mass. If you've been in the gym and you're in the gym, with a trainer a couple times per week and you're just not seeing those results and you're sick of it, then there's good peptides that you can cycle through that help convert that fat into lean muscle. And then there are things like semaglutide, and I will go there for that patient who is truly, truly struggling so deeply with their image and their body image to help benefit their health in the future and their ability to heal from everything else. So it is not something that I am against fully, but because of what we know with the long term, I also will not be someone that contributes to increasing your risk of everything that we just went through.
Yeah. And God made peptides, like peptides in nature are the first choice over a therapeutic peptide.
Yes.
Which is made in a lab and has extra chemicals in it. So just be aware that there are bioavailable precision peptides, there's plant-based peptides, there's things that are, they come in an injection, but they are natural that where your body
Naturally
can
derived.
your body can adjust and absorb and use them more than it would a therapeutic that just is coming in and landing on that receptor.
Yes, there are synthetic peptides and then there are natural bioavailable peptides. Both have to be quote unquote made because it's an injection. So I can't just get this from outside and sell it to my patient. We have to get it from our compounding pharmacies. But there is a big difference in those. And we'll have a whole discussion maybe next month that will dive deeper into peptides because they're really, really awesome.
Yeah. And we're doing some research now to give you some more information on some pretty cool things.
Yes. And until then,
let's discover together. Become an insider at thediscoverydoc.com and receive exclusive benefits and offers right in your inbox. Enjoy our deepest savings and perks reserved just for our insiders. This list closes on December 31st, so don't miss your opportunity.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode with Dr. Elisa Song as much as we did. With her expert guidance, you're now equipped with the knowledge and tools to tackle gut microbiome disruptions head on. Remember, maintaining a healthy gut is key to overall well-being, so keep those tips in mind and make your gut a top priority.